I think Tevez going to Juventus, what a coup that was for me. I mean,
on a head-to-head battle, Atletico Madrid can do more damage to Barcelona than the other way around.
Either he's really blind or he's fixing the match. I can't see it any other way.
I'm trying to get Sir Bob on my side here by saying City will win the Premier League.
it is an upset. You would expect Man United to go and win there.
Over $1 billion was paid in transfer fees between the clubs in Europe.
It's football. It's damn football. Like Ferguson said, football. Bloody marvellous.
Yeah, well, the celebration was, I can't believe I just scored against Mexico. At one point, Parma, I think it's only like 224 players under contract. Hey, they're going to throw me out of here, fellas. You're going to get me arrested on your show.
If you're a serious talent, you're going back and you're playing for Santos. You know, you're going back to play for, like in Argentina, for River Plate or Boca Juniors, or you're going to Europe.
He looked like the Ryan Giggs of old. He was more creative than any player on the pitch. He made Mata look stupid. He made Rooney look silly.
Now, the Premier League is the most exciting league out there. I think it's probably the best marketed league without a question.
When you look at the draw for the Champions League, you kind of say, well, all the pieces kind of fell into place for everybody except City.
I am your host, Joe Usello. Sir Bob, Mike Orr. My co-host, Rob Rojas. My trusted co-host, Ben the Machine. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Low Limit Football on this January 25th, 2016. I am your host, Joe Usello, and back after another great weekend of football. Perfect weekend for football, as up here in the Northeast, we did get snowed in all the way down the eastern seaboard of the United States. People in Washington, D.C. with up to 2 feet of snow. I only got my solitary foot of snow, but it was certainly enough to keep me on the couch and watching football all day. So had a great weekend of watching a few games. Got to see my beloved Juventus take Roma out yesterday as well. Saw some great action. Even in Mexico, we saw a few good games this weekend as well, but certainly had a great time. Gonna welcome back in from the Great White North, the guy that actually didn't get any snow this weekend, Mike Orr. Mike, what's going on?
Green here, Joe, and I don't just mean the pot.
Yeah. You can come over and shovel my driveway, pal. But you'll get yours. It is Toronto, right?
Yeah, well, I'm hoping we're going to miss it this winter. But, yeah, I feel bad for you because I hate snow, man.
You know, and some of my coworkers, the way Connecticut went with this snowstorm, the shore, including Rob, who will attest to this, got walloped. And, and people in the northern side of the state got like a dusting. And so I was, with my coworkers this morning, I'm like, oh, yeah, I got to remove a foot of snow from my driveway. They're like, you really got that much? And I'm...
Oh, that always sucks, too. Then. Yeah, that makes me mad.
Thank God for snowblowers, I got to tell you. So I can't wait till one of these days when I move someplace sunny and I get to sell it. But that'll be probably the second best thing that'll happen. So, Roberto, ¿cómo está?
Bien.
Yeah? Good. You dug out, and the man made you work Saturday night anyway, didn't he?
Oh, yeah, it was dead. 10 people, 15 people in like 3 hours.
Bastards. I mean, seriously, how can they expect to have a busy week?
How do you expect people to actually come?
Yeah. You can't
especially when everyone already bought a week's worth of supplies the day before.
Exactly. Yeah, milk and bread.
Even if it didn't snow, no one was coming.
Yeah. No, of course not.
Not that day, because they already had everything.
Yeah, so it's just crazy time. But, hey, we got through it. So, and it's, my buddy in North Carolina, who I believe is listening tonight, I'm excited because his wife and his in-laws are Colombian. And they follow Colombian football. In fact, 2 years ago during the World Cup, we were at his house for 4th of July, and I watched Colombia-Brazil on his deck with his family. And all of us, we're all sitting there like we pulled a big screen TV outside, and obviously it was a disappointing result for anybody that was Colombian, but it was fantastic to sit there and watch it with him. We had a great time. So I messaged him earlier tonight saying that we've got a Colombian football expert coming on. So I think we might be getting a couple more listeners because of that. So
and people actually learned how to spell Colombia during that tournament.
That's right. Well, in Connecticut we do.
So a lot of people used to U. Yeah,
well, in Connecticut, the town that's a couple towns over from me uses the U.
Yeah, so does British Columbia, the province here.
That's right. So, but Carl Worswick is going to be joining us at the bottom of the hour from ESPN FC. we're going to talk about Colombian football and footballers. So going to be a great time with him. An exciting show overall. So also, guys, I believe this week we are recording our first episode of This Week in Football, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike, does that sound right?
Sounds right, yeah.
Okay, so keep an eye out for that. We obviously we've got to finalize the uploadability at Vavel for that, but we will definitely have that up by the end of the week, and hopefully we'll have a pretty good show for that one for everybody. So keep an ear out for that.
Somebody making dinner?
Not me, not yet.
I hear dishes.
No, not today. So let's jump into it, gentlemen. Let's get to the trivia question. Let's see if Mike makes it a layup like it was last week. Something like that.
Hold on a second. I got to find it. Just give me 1 second.
Yeah.
Where the heck did I put it?
We're eagerly awaiting.
Great radio. Hold on a second. Here it is. Okay. I have been a teammate of Matthew Flamini,
Mm-hmm.
Wesley Schneider, Arjen Robben, Joe Cole, Nigel Rio-Coker, and Yaya Toure. Who am I?
Ooh.
I gotta write all these down. Hang on a second.
So I'll just repeat it for people who are writing it down like you guys. I have been a teammate of Matthew Flamini, Wesley Snyder, Arjen Robben, Joe Cole, Nigel Rio-Coker, and Yaya Toure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I got nothing.
No. Hold on, let me think about this. Give me a minute.
Repeat the names just one more time.
You're too nervous, Joe. I'm on the show this week. You got no chance.
I've got him. Matthew Flamini,
one more time, Mike.
Matthew Flamini, Wesley Snyder, Arjen Robben, Joe Cole, Nigel Rio-Coker, and Yaya Toure. Those were his.
Did you say Matthew Flamini?
Matthew Flamini as well.
Yeah, I did. It was the first one.
There was a bit of a blank there. So
sorry. Yeah, Matthew Flamini.
No, Skype.
No, I have an idea.
Yeah, I'm lost. Absolutely.
And it's not Carlos Tevez, who we've indicated is the answer to every trivia question.
No, it can't be Carlos Tevez.
So, actually, let's look at that. Hang on a second.
I will make sure he's never an answer.
Now that I said that, let's make sure it's not Carlos Tevez. You know, the Yaya Toure part's in there. That's a little sketchy, but no, I don't think Tevez is the answer there. But I wrote down an answer.
All right.
We'll see. Well, although last week I wrote down an answer, it was wrong, but the right answer came to me like at the very end. So we'll figure it out. So let's move on. We've got about 20 minutes before our guest comes on, and I guess that's good. That's good practice for our This Week in Football podcast. So opening thoughts tonight, gentlemen, and the opening thoughts. For me, when I came up with the opening thoughts topic, was a combination of things. We saw recently in the paper that, Robbie Keane. You got me thinking Roy King. But Robbie Keane had recently said that Bruce Arena is the Alex Ferguson of America. That was written up in ESPN's FC's article. And then it got me thinking, one of the things that I always talk about with Manchester United, and I've said it numerous times on this show, is it seems like everybody and their grandmother's always rumored to be going to Manchester United in a transfer. We talk about this week in and week out, even when there is no open transfer window. And then I look back at all the players that have come and that may be coming or that could be coming to MLS, I noticed that the players, especially in recent memory, are all rumored to or have gone to the LA Galaxy. Like, we don't sit here and talk about the Portland Timbers picking up the next great European to come over. We don't talk about the Chicago Fire doing that. In fact, the Chicago Fire lost out on Jermaine Jones. So we've constantly had this influx of players, but none of them are going. They're only going to select a few teams, and now it seems more than ever that we're seeing a lot of them going to the LA Galaxy. So, Mike, I'm going to throw it over to you first. You saw the article, and we talked a few minutes about the idea behind this topic. What were your thoughts on the LA Galaxy becoming MLS's Man United?
Well, being that I don't like the LA Galaxy, I'd be glad if they became the Manchester United, because Manchester United is terrible. So that would make me happy. But for me, it's just a matter of Robbie Keane blowing smoke up Bruce Arena's ass. It's a stupid thing to say as far as I'm concerned. And I'd like to know, when did Mr. Arena become a drunken, red-nosed twat?
Ever since he took care of the national team?
Nah, I don't know. I didn't realize that that's what happened to him. So, yeah, for me, it's there.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of sucking up. Does Robbie Keane need to suck up to?
I don't know. How old is he?
He's getting up there in age. I mean, how much?
Yeah, he might need to.
How much longer does he want to stay? Right? That would lead you to that.
35.
Question. So Keane's 35. I mean, he's playing on the Irish national team. I believe he's on the squad for the Euros for them.
He was in qualifying. I think he might have missed the last game or two because of injury, but he definitely played up to the lead up to the tournament.
He should be a favorite. He should be a favorite to be on the team.
Yeah, but my point is, I don't think he needs.
But I just don't know what that says about him or the Irish team for me.
Well, that's a whole nother opening thoughts topic. Yeah, but I don't think that Robbie Keane needs to suck up. Do you know what I mean? I don't think he needs to do that unless he feels threatened by some of the other players, maybe even some of the players that are coming in or have come in. But none of these guys are strikers. The list that I've got in front of me is Ashley Cole, has that confirmed yet? Mike, you might know.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I haven't heard anything.
Terrible if he goes there anyway.
Nemanja Vidic's contract was terminated at Inter, and he was rumored to be going to the LA Galaxy. Jelle Van Damme was rumored, and I also saw a rumor of Julian Lescott possibly going over to the Galaxy. So, none of those players play striker, but at the same time, you look at the people the players they picked up last year, and Steven Gerrard and Giovanni Dos Santos, so already had Robbie Keane on the team. They had Juninho. I don't know how many DPs you're allowed, but it seems to me like they probably had about 9 DPs. They've also picked up David Beckham back in the day. They had Landon Donovan when he came back because he was with San Jose. The LA Galaxy. It's almost like the NFL. I mean, and I know they're NFL owned, and I don't really want to go down this road too much, but it's almost as if the
Galaxy are NFL owned.
Well, in general,
who owns the Galaxy?
I'd have to go look, but
AEG.
Oh, okay.
AEG also owns a couple of NFL teams, I thought.
I have no idea.
I think they could only own one if they do, but
they own the Los Angeles Kings.
You can only own one NFL team.
But my point is that the majority of the ownership in MLS is made up of NFL owners.
Yeah, no, and I didn't mean to sidetrack. I just didn't realize that they were owned by the NFL, and I guess they are. So I didn't know that. And
you always see these things where these rules are kind of changed or tweaked a little bit, and it usually is to the benefit of like the flavor of the day. So I mean, even Anto Bianco, who's a big New England Patriots fan, was talking about in this day and age we see these particular superstars that don't get shipped off to other teams in light of the salary cap. So my point is that maybe MLS knows that if they want the TV rights, if they want the revenue, if they want all that stuff to go good for them, you need to be strong in a big market, and there aren't many markets that get any bigger than LA. And if you think about it, all the other players that were brought in that were superstars, aside from what we got in Sebastian Giovinco, and I don't think anyone expected Giovinco to be that good.
No, but you could say in the last 2 or 3 years, Toronto's the team that's been the marquee team in the transfer.
With Bradley and Altidore.
And Defoe.
And Defoe, yep. But look at Andrea Pirlo, David Villa,
and Aurelio Gomez now, and now they just signed Drew Moore. They've signed Irwin from Colorado. There's another defender I'm missing. They've also signed Will Johnson.
Yeah, but none of these guys.
You'd have a hard time saying Toronto hasn't made the biggest splashes in the last 3 transfer windows. I think.
But aside from Defoe, Bradley, and Altidore, and you can even exclude Bradley and Altidore a little bit, which one of those were superstars in Europe before they came over?
But those guys, the guys you're talking about, were no longer superstars in Europe when they came over.
No, but they were at one time, and they're household names in this country. Steven Gerrard, Frank Lampard, those are big names. and they're all going to New York, or they're
I'll
all...
give you David Beckham. I don't know. Those are big names amongst people who follow soccer. If you don't follow soccer, you don't know Steven Gerrard. He's not David Beckham. He doesn't transcend soccer.
No. I think his position at Liverpool over the years. I think he. I don't think he transcends.
Depends on the person.
No, but I'm talking about non-soccer fans. Joe.
Yeah,
they knew David Beckham, whether you like soccer or not. You just know David Beckham.
Right. No,
it's like going.
I don't think that's the case with Steven Gerrard, Frank Lampard. None of them.
No,
it's like knowing Cristiano Ronaldo.
That's why I kind of agree with you when you brought that subject up. Has there ever been a bigger splash than David Beckham by the end of it?
Right,
no, there hasn't. In that, he transcends soccer.
Right. Okay.
Especially in this part of the world.
Well, I almost feel like that we, because of the exposure of the EPL here in the United States, that I think more people know Steven Gerrard and Frank Lampard than you're giving them credit. But
we can easily just go ask some non-soccer people and see over the next week.
I was going to say, but maybe not to the extent that I'm making it out to be.
Oh, okay, yeah, because I don't think so. I don't think people know. I'll give you Steven Gerrard. I don't think people know who Frank Lampard is if they don't follow soccer.
I was going to say, I think the truth is somewhere between you and me. You know, I don't think it's as big as I'm stating it, but I don't think it's as small as you're stating it.
In the middle.
Yeah, somewhere in the middle. I think.
So you actually think that people who don't follow soccer know who Frank Lampard is? Who don't follow soccer,
who don't follow soccer specifically, but who are sports fans.
Yeah.
Yes, I do believe that there is some decent knowledge of Frank Lampard and Stevie G out there. I do, but I'm also giving into the fact that it might not be as big as I think it is, but I don't think it's a small proportion either.
Yes.
That's my thing. So, Rob, we've kind of cut you out of here a little bit. Let's get your thoughts on the new Manchester United, known as the LA Galaxy.
Well, you look at teams who are... you can make a few comparisons within the LA Galaxy and Manchester United. LA Galaxy are the most successful team in MLS. Manchester United the most successful team in the Premier League. So there are some comparisons. As Mike has also stated, there hasn't been as many big names, as opposed to those who don't know the sport as much, such as David Beckham. We know Landon Donovan has been synonymous for American soccer for various years.
Right.
That's one. And then you have other ones like Steven Gerrard, Robbie Keane, Giovanni Dos Santos, and other players who soccer fans know from watching their times on the national teams and in various leagues around the world. But I think you could make a comparison on that, but... yeah, I think I have to go with Mike said. I think it's just Bruce Arena just stating smoke.
No, Robbie Keane, actually, right?
Robbie Keane smoking.
Yeah.
Robbie Keane smoking, yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
I mean, I could see where, you bring up a good point about the level of success that the two teams have shared, especially within the same time frame. You look over the last 20 years, I don't think there's been a much more successful team in England than Manchester United. Would you guys agree?
For sure, yeah. They're up until last year, too. They're the biggest club in the world.
13-time Premier League champions for a reason.
So they're, and I think MLS, they've won MLS Cup, LA Galaxy's won MLS Cup 5 times, I think.
That's correct.
In that time span. So, and obviously the bulk of the trophies there as well. I mean, and even against good DC United teams, that we've seen come through. We've seen some great New England Revolution teams come through that have not won the title. Even the Chicago Fire in the mid to late 90s was quite strong, even into the early 2000s. Obviously they've fallen kind of off the planet from where they once were, but I think overall the one that has endured is the LA Galaxy.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, do you guys know? I'm just curious as to how many years Bruce Arena's been at the helm. Just trying to think, because he was replaced by Bob Bradley on the men's national team side, and I think he went
2008. He's been at the helm of the LA Galaxy since 2008.
And another contrast is Alex Ferguson's never coached at the national level.
That's true.
I think he has. Yes, he has. Sir Alex Ferguson has coached Scotland.
He did coach the Scottish national team
before he went to Manchester United.
Oh God, that's got to be way back there then.
1985, 1986. So 86 he joined United. Left until 2013. Bruce Arena joined the U.S. national team 98 to 2006. Joined the LA Galaxy 2 years later.
And do you have any stats on how successful he was? I mean, Arena was arguably one of the most successful coaches in for the U.S. men's national team. If we really
you ever see him returning to that job?
I don't see it. I don't see it.
Yeah, I don't think with the way the climate is right now with the U.S. men's national team, I don't think he wants it. I don't think he wants. For me, there's a little dysfunction going on there, and I don't know if it's Klinsmann the way he's running things as the technical director and the coach. I don't know if it's Sunil Gulati. I don't know what it is, but let's be honest.
But let me ask you this: do American football fans maybe not realize that the golden generation was that generation, and it's not this one? No matter what coach who's coaching, it's not the same level of talent.
No, it's not.
Oh, I agree, and I think that is part of the problem with the U.S. soccer fans' perception, is because the U.S. soccer fan expected to get better. Do you know what I mean? Like
right, but it's hard to get better if that was the golden generation.
I agree. I don't think
there's only going to be regression for probably at least till the next level of kids come that are like 13 and 14, 15 now.
I don't think
it's got to be a whole cycle, go 2 cycles even before that happens again.
Right.
I think. And anyway,
yeah, he's right.
I don't think the American fan though thought this was it. I thought the American fan was okay. This is the upward trend.
Right, but do you think, my
bigger.
question kind of is, do you think the American fan should be realizing that maybe that was the case now?
Yeah,
of
right.
course.
So it doesn't matter if Jurgen Klinsmann's the coach. It doesn't matter if Alex Ferguson's the coach. This is the level that they are at the moment.
It needs to get better.
Yeah,
it needs to get better.
And there's some young, and like I said, I think there's probably a bunch of young kids that are 13 and 14 that we haven't heard of yet that are probably going to come along and... there's the United States still a powerhouse in this part of the world.
Sure, and I think everyone looks at the fact that there's over 300 million people in this country, and athletically we have the best. We have the best in the world. We have the best, facilities. We're supposed to have the best coaches. We're supposed to have the best of everything. That's just America. USA #1. That's just how we roll here. And
I guess the one problem with that is you can say in American men's sports, outside of soccer. You'd probably be hard-pressed to find something that you're not top 10 in the world in.
Top 10, top 3.
Well, there's some other things, but I'll just say top 10 in the world. I'm talking everything. You can find lots of things you're top 3 in, but there'll be some other things that, you're 6th or 7th, but you're still in the top 10.
Yeah,
I guess maybe one thing would be cricket, but that just doesn't exist in this part of the world. Really.
Right. And even rugby has gotten to the point where it's starting to be an up-and-coming sport in this country, but it's not quite there yet. But you look at, obviously...
So I think that's the perception that's with soccer, too, is why are we so bad when
I think what we're talking about in this country is that we're putting soccer up on that level with the big 4. In this country, we have the big 4: baseball, basketball, football, and hockey. And we're starting to put soccer into that conversation in the United States. At least I think. And do we attribute that to the U.S. men's national team? Do we attribute it to the women's national team? Do we attribute it to the exposure to Europe? I don't know, but it's going there. You've got all these kids. More kids play soccer in this country than any other sport. We're going.
I attribute it to television.
I think that is part of it. I think that has a big chunk to do with it. But I think it. Like we said, we look at basketball. There's nobody in this world that's better than the Americans at basketball. Period. End of story. It's not even arguable. I mean, we put the top 5 men's basketball players on the court. They're going to beat everybody. We look at hockey. Now, obviously, Canada...
But the gap is closing in the basketball.
It is, but it's still...
Yeah, no, it's still there, but it has closed considerably in the last 15 years.
Baseball, same kind of idea.
Yeah, that's closed a lot, too, though.
That's closed a lot, where now you've got the Dominican Republic. That's good. You got Panama.
What about hockey?
Hockey, I've got to think they're number 2 or number 3 in the world.
Yeah, who's number 1, though? I forget.
Yeah, the next... the 52nd state of the United States.
Yeah, all right.
That's okay. But you know what I mean. We go through all these big sports. I mean, football doesn't have a peer. I guess if you want to call it rugby, but it's not the same sport, so you can't really compare football. But the other big ones, U.S. is top 3, no matter what. And now we go to soccer, and we look at soccer and we go, geez, how come we're not top 3? How come we're not top 5? How come we're not top 10? How come we're not top 20? Because we've got to go that far down the ladder at this point. And we were trending up with Landon Donovan, with Clint Dempsey in his prime. We were trending up with those players, the Casey Kellers of the world and the Brad Friedels of the world. And those guys were finding success in Europe. And so now we expect to get better. We should be climbing that ladder up to the number 10, number 5 spot. We should be up there, but we're not. We're digressing. And I think to your point, Mike, is that maybe the Landon Donovan age was the golden age for now until a new golden age comes along. And I
actually,
think,
Landon Donovan might have been the signal of the end of that age.
Yes, because you're talking about the Tab Ramos, Claudio Reynas,
yeah,
Eric Winalda.
Yeah, right.
We talked about that. We had Eric Winalda on here. We talked about Tony Miola. I mean, those guys were, I would say, from that '94 World Cup to probably the 2002 World Cup. I would say, guys, is, I guess, the golden age, or even the 2006 World Cup is the golden age, which had the exclamation point put on the 2009 Confederations Cup, where they lost in the final to Brazil in that Confed Cup. I think that was the end, the complete end of that golden era, but that golden era started somewhere around 94 to 98, and then proceeded on. And
I guess there's still a couple of holdovers. You got Clint Dempsey, but, he's near the end, too. So there's still a couple of holdovers, but you're right. I think it's... But
he's water under the bridge. And I also think, maybe... I know there's been a focus a lot lately about looking at players from Germany, bringing in these players and naturalizing them and that sort of thing. Maybe there's an issue with that. I don't know, because you look at those other players that were back in the beginning of that age, those kids were all homegrown. Those kids all played, school. They all played ball in their high school. They all played college soccer. That's kind of where they came from, And you look back to the Gansler team of, I think it was '90, and that was basically all college players. That's where his team was from. We didn't have kids at La Masia and that sort of thing. So, we should be progressing, and I think that's the part where people look at this golden age and they say, hey, why aren't we getting better? Did we have that golden age already and it's gone? Why? We have all these things open to us now. We have MLS. We have youth academies. We have kids going over to Europe and play. We have more players playing in foreign leagues than ever before. We're getting players playing in the top divisions in England. We're getting players in the top divisions in Germany and in Spain and in France and in Italy and all the big countries. Why aren't we getting better? And Mike, to your point, I think maybe we did miss the boat. Maybe.
Are there Americans in South America? Like any prominent players playing down there?
I don't think so. Rob, you might have a better handle on that, but I don't think so.
Nope, not at all.
Yeah,
nope.
and I was going to say, usually when you think about it, Mike, the money is in Europe, but I think everyone's starting to recognize that the secondary money is either in China, which we'll talk about with the transfer window maybe if we get to it a little later on, or MLS.
Or Mexico.
And you're finding now, look at Omar Gonzalez goes to Mexico from the LA Galaxy. We had an exodus of a few players going to Mexico, so we're starting to see that. And really what you're seeing, and I saw an article on this, is the mid-level player going to Mexico because the money is better there. The money in MLS is very top-heavy per team. So you've got the Sebastian Javinko's making $7 million and the Frank Lampard's making $6 million. But the guy at the bottom, at the end of the bench, is only making like $40,000 a year, and he's got to go hold down a second job. Where when he leaves his second job in the afternoon, what does he do? He sits next to Robbie Keane, and he gets changed to play soccer.
So what does more to grow? Because I know you guys like that, to grow the game and the MLS. Is it promotion, relegation? And this, just give me a quick answer because we don't need to get into Ted here. Right, or is it no salary cap?
No salary cap.
No salary cap.
I agree, yeah.
Yeah,
no
because I think no salary cap, well, as long as it's managed properly. No salary cap means you can spread, well, it means you can
Well, you're still going to be subject to FPP.
Yes, of course.
Or FFP, sorry.
But you can spread the money down a little further. Instead, where you have the salary cap, you bring on a guy like a Jovinko. It almost, not saying it doesn't matter what you put around him, but you're not as concerned with, let's say, the back line. And obviously Toronto saw the pain and suffering of that this year.
But they brought in some guys this year.
Right, they did. But they also unloaded a few guys, too. They got a couple off the books that allowed them to do that. So, but you know what I mean? You have to manage it right, where I think if you're allowed to pay these kids a little better, maybe Jeff Cameron doesn't go over to England. Maybe Fabian Johnson decides to come and play here instead. Maybe you get that type of player.
Or even if Jeff Cameron does go over to England, you can replace him with a better talent.
Right. But you can bring that better talent in, and when you bring that better talent in, it helps the players around them, both as an opponent and as a teammate. You become a better player, and I think that would go to developing the players in this game a little bit better, in my opinion. Rob, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree 100%.
And that's more likely, right? A more open salary cap than pro relegation ever happening, right?
Yeah, because right now MLS still wants control. They want the single entity. They millionaires are buying in for $100 million a head.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's what I'm saying. That one's it's not. I don't know. There's too much money involved at the MLS level now for teams to agree to it, as far as I'm concerned. Pro relegation happens without MLS, I think.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I just think that pro rel. I don't know that we're going to see it anytime soon. And I admire what those guys do on Twitter. The Ben Fass and the Ted Westervelts of the world. And I would love to see a system of pro rel, because it also means that you get some of these lesser clubs. They get up there, But
I'd rather see no salary cap than pro rel.
Yeah, I think no salary cap is probably the next step to making the product on the pitch better, because you will have a much more well-rounded team. But also, I think you're going to start to see the teams that don't have a ton of money, like the Colorados of the world, even the Real Salt Lakes that don't have a ton of money, you might see them slip a little bit. And then, Mike, I do want to bring in one more thought on that. What do you do about the Canadian teams? Because the dollar, the difference in dollar.
Okay, well, that's not a concern for Toronto, obviously, being who owns them.
Right.
Montreal and Vancouver as well.
Montreal is owned by a very rich individual, so it could be of a concern to him just because he's an individual. And he can make his own mind up. Okay, I'm losing too much here, or I'm not. But he's very rich, and I'm not sure who owns the Vancouver Whitecaps.
Yeah, I'm not sure who owns them either.
But I know they can't have budgeted for Canadian dollar falling quite this far, this fast, after that rise from so far down to so high. It was actually 2 years ago, it was ahead of the U.S. dollar. I think this is something that's cyclical, and teams have always dealt with it.
Yeah.
In terms of NHL teams having to deal with it in the past and stuff like that. It is a concern, but it depends on who your owner is, I guess, whether they can weather it.
Now, I was going to say, I don't know how we digressed from the LA Galaxy being the Manchester United of the world to the U.S. men's national team and MLS's troubles, but I think we're having a little trouble with Carl at the moment. Let me just check. Carl, are you there?
I certainly am.
Fantastic. So joining us now on Low Limit Football from ESPN FC is Carl Worswick. Welcome to the show. We're glad to have you on, and excited to talk about Colombian football. I started to do a little bit of homework and research in preparation for our interview tonight, and it just amazes me some of the players that we get to talk about tonight, because there's some of the most talented players in the world, and we were just talking about a golden age of U.S. soccer that we may have missed the boat. Right now, would you call this age of players the golden age of football in Colombia?
Well, it's always a little bit difficult to talk about golden ages because it's had disastrous consequences in the past. We remember that first golden age from the 1990s. Pelle's prediction that they were going to win the World Cup, the 5-0 in Argentina, and they flop out in the first round. So it's not something that Colombians like to be reminded of. I would say that the golden age, if there was to be one, came about at the World Cup. Since then, since the 2014 World Cup, there's been very, very few highlights. If you look at the team at the moment, hardly any of them are playing. I mean, one of the most important players for Colombia is Carlos Sanchez. He's been part of the team for the entire Beckham process. He can't get in. The worst Aston Villa team, and I know I'm an Aston Villa supporter, for 30 years. Falcao, I think last week was the 2-year anniversary of his injury. Since then, he started 17 games, he scored 8 goals. Jackson Martinez, what's happened to him? Cuadrado can't get a game at Juventus. It's not looking good at the moment for Colombia, and that's after a very disappointing Copa America too. There are some bright spots. I think Carlos Bacca's form at Milan. He scored his 10th goal at the weekend. I think that's a record for a Colombian player. He's equalled Aspria's 10 goals in a season there. Murillo's getting a lot of game time at Inter. He was perhaps the star defender in the Copa America. But no, Beckham's got his work cut out.
You know, you just took half my questions away. I was going to ask you.
You're going to cut me off.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about a lot of the players in the Serie A because I tend to cover the Serie A. So I mean, obviously the performance of Carlos Bacca has been fantastic at AC Milan. He's really been a nice, refreshing, solution at striker for them, and especially when he's paired up with Luis Adriano up top. We're seeing some great stuff up there, although Adriano was almost sent off in this transfer window so far. What do you think would help Bacca from here? I mean, he had a fantastic career in Spain. He's doing it again in Italy. What do you see for Carlos Bacca's future from here? Does he stay at Milan? Does he go on to a different club?
Well, he's only just moved to Milan, so I'd imagine he's pretty happy for the time being, certainly to the end of the season. I don't see him going anywhere. I've not seen any links to him going anywhere in this transfer window. Think that it will. I think he's 29, 30 now, so maybe he might be thinking one transfer more in his career before he starts winding it down. That could be an option. But I think the best thing about it is his attitude. I remember I wrote a review of the Colombian season way back in 2011. I picked him as my player of the season, and he then signed for Club Brugge. I had no confidence of him doing well. It was January. It was minus 17 when he made his debut. And yet he got on with it. He's from the coast in Colombia. It's 35 degrees, 38 degrees there. The humidity is intense. And yet, wherever he's gone, he's just knuckled down and got on with it. And I think that attitude has served him well. And what could also be great for him this year is that Falcao now clearly cannot be Colombia's number 9. I mean, incredible as it seems to the outside world, especially fans in England, here in Colombia, a lot of people still talk of him. He's just going to get a few games under his belt. He'll be back. But he can't be number 9 anymore. And with Jackson no longer playing regularly, Jackson and Bacca is clearly the name to be the number 9 for Colombia, and that could help his career a hell of a lot.
Right. I know that I could have given you a million Falcao questions, but I know my co-hosts have those, so I'm going to save those for later. I do want to talk about Jason Murillo over at Inter Milan. He's, again, we talk about a refreshing addition to a team. Him, along with Miranda on the back line as center backs for Inter, have really been tremendous for that Inter Milan side and its resurgence back to the top of the Serie A table. They've fallen off a little bit as of late. We talked about this with Nima Tavale last week about Jason Murillo possibly earning the captaincy for Inter Milan in the near future. Do you think that Jason Murillo has enough character to be able to take that captain's armband for the Colombian national team?
In time, yeah, I do. I mean, he's a great example of what Peckerman did really well for Colombia. Peckerman would pick a base of 30 players. He would call up the same 25 every single time. And he'd have a look at 2 or 3 others. One of those was Murillo. I can't remember the exact date, 3-4 years ago. And just kept having a look at him, seeing how he was going. And when Yepes, the captain at the World Cup, had to retire, then it was natural to turn to him. And all of a sudden, Colombians didn't really know how good he was, but in a few friendlies, he just looks so mature. His timing of the tackle was precise. Maybe sometimes he's a little bit overconfident, but I mean, you probably watch more of him in Italy than I do, but I think Inter have the best defensive record in the league, with him and Miranda pretty much starting everything. So that defending is collective, but it does say a lot about his game. But he's still very young. But for Colombia, I don't see any serious rival to take his place. I think he's ahead of Christian Zapata with Eden Belanta, the River player, who's finally forgotten that year of injuries. He's getting a run of games now. He could be a challenger, but I think more for Zapata rather than Murillo. So, in time, I think he will be a captain. And that is a position that Colombia are screaming out for, because in the World Cup qualifiers I've seen so far, it's all very quiet. There's no leaders in the team anymore. James, is he really a leader? He's still only 24 as well. No, there aren't really any leaders in the team. Guarin was given the chance. He flopped massively in Uruguay. So, with a bit of time, I think Theo could come good and be captain of Colombia.
Sure. Now I'm going to take you over to my last player that I wanted to talk about tonight in the Serie A, and that is Juan Cuadrado. Really had a fantastic career in Italy. Moved on to Chelsea, where he really floundered, and then was sent back. He's now at Juventus on loan. He's been making the side sporadically, as the starting 11. But when he does see the pitch, for me, he's been fantastic. I always enjoyed Juan Cuadrado as a player. I'd like your thoughts on his overall performance in Italy this year, especially compared to his previous tour of duty in Italy, and what does that do for his prospects for the national team?
Well, for the last 3 months, he's not started very many. I think his last start was in December, right? So I haven't seen many of his games. To tune into a game for the last 10 minutes, I think he's been coming on the right of midfield in that 3-5-2. Is that right?
I believe that's correct. Yeah, he's playing on that outside wing. He did get in for Lichtsteiner this weekend against Roma.
Right, I think that's generally what he's been coming on. So he's got defensive duties as well, right?
That's correct.
I think that's where it all went a bit wrong for him at Chelsea. He was bought, and it seemed like the manager didn't want him. He was never given a chance. He looked way, way, way off the pace. Probably playing in not his favourite position. For Chelsea, it never back to Juventus. He had a great start, but since then he can't get in the starting lineup. For Colombia, he's still one of the most important players. But again, he's another one who at the World Cup, he was one of the stars. He picked up the ball. He could take it past two players. He made things happen. And I haven't seen that a lot for him for Colombia in the World Cup qualifier so far. So we still got 2 months until the next qualifying round at the end of March. So that's a lot of time, a lot of games to be packed in. But at the moment, he's no one whose position is not completely safe like it was maybe 6 months ago.
Right. And the thing is that with Juventus being in so many different competitions, with the Coppa Italia, with the Champions League, with the Serie A, they're going to need the depth. And so I think he may not be getting his chances at the moment, but it's been a rather light section of the schedule for Juventus. And I think as everything ramps up with the Champions League, you'll probably see him see the pitch a little bit more often. Okay, right, yeah, that makes sense, I guess. That should have a beneficial effect on the Colombian team then, if that's the case, as they get into the warm-up round for the World Cup qualifiers, and then there's this Copa America this year, which many countries probably won't send their best team. Right. Colombia might send a few big names. I'm touching on another question here with the Copa America, aren't I? Yeah. No, that's okay, because I know we want to talk about it. So I'm going to send you over to Mike Orr up in Toronto, because I know Mike has a bunch of questions. So Mike, if you wouldn't mind taking it away.
Hi, Carl. How are you doing tonight?
I'm pretty good, thanks, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. My other co-host tells me, judging by your accent, that you are from Manchester. That's very good, yeah. Well, okay, so my question... Oh, sorry. He's good at that. He's good with the accents. So my question to you is, City or United? Well, I think I just mentioned it previously. Neither, actually. My family weren't very into football, so I support Aston Villa, and what a season we're having. So
tuning into those games at 8 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning has been thoroughly miserable this year.
Yeah, and I guess actually Aston Villa is one of only 7 clubs that's never been out of the Premier League since it started.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. I think that will be 6 clubs at the end of this season.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize what a big club it is, Aston Villa, and that what a shame what's happened this season.
Yeah, former European champions, huge fan base. Won the majority of the titles from the 1800s, but still, it does have a long history. I started supporting the team just because, as an 8-year-old, I went to a game. I saw this kid playing called Davy Platt. He later went on to play for Arsenal, Sampdoria, captain of England, and he was my hero as an 8-year-old. So I just carried on supporting them, and we won 2 League Cups in my lifetime. That's the same.
Sorry, go on.
No, I finished. Yeah, that's the only thing.
That's the same David Platt that was at Manchester City too, right?
Yeah, as the coach.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I love him too, actually. Okay, let's switch over to a little bit of Colombian talk now. I guess one of the reports that came out, I think it was this weekend, is there's claims that James Rodriguez has been enjoying the nightlife a little too much in Madrid. Colombian journalist Ivan Mejia accused the midfielder of going to all the parties, and I'm just wondering if you know anything about this. I know James has come out and totally denied this, but is there any truth to this?
Well, in Colombia, a lot of the press reportings are just lifted from the Spanish media, so it's very difficult to delve amongst all the rumour. And I'm sure most of it is rumour. Now, Ivan here is a typical journalist who likes to stir opinion. He wrote this column saying James has lost all his humility. There was another journalist who wrote an article saying that he's drunk on his early success. Seems a little bit over the top, but there are a lot of accusations that he's overweight. And I think it all started with this police chase where he was driving his car at 200 kilometers an hour, and police were chasing him, and he wouldn't stop because he had his music too loud, which is a bit odd. But the other gossip is, well, his wife. Now, we've got to remember this kid from the age of 8-9 years old has been involved in football almost full time. I was at the Pony Football Championship, one of the world's leading under-13 football championships in the world, I think from the 2014 World Cup. Of Peckham's 30-man squad, 11 of them had played in this tournament. It's seen as being like the template of how to bring up young kids. I was there last week in Medellin for their recent edition, and there James made his name. He was playing almost full-time football for the last 15 years. And he was whipped off to Banfield at an early age. He had no family there at all. From there, he was at Porto. I can understand why the guy needs a little bit of a break. But one of the rumours is his wife isn't with him in Spain. Since January, she's come over to Colombia to appear in a Colombian TV reality show. Something lifted from the BBC, some dancing on and ice or grass. I don't know what it is. He's all alone in Spain, so that's fueled all the rumours. It probably is a lot more gas, humo, as they say in Colombia, than reality. But there's no doubt that his performance, his attitude isn't what it was, and he isn't the same player as he was last season, certainly not the same player as he was at the 2004 World Cup, where he was arguably one of the best players.
Okay, so I guess that segues me right into another player that doesn't quite seem to be the same these days, Falcao. There's reports that Chelsea will have to pay $38 million if they wanted to sign him on a permanent basis. Amid reports that Monaco actually lent him to Chelsea for free. What can you tell us about the status of Falcao, and do you ever think he's going to get it back?
To be blunt, no, unfortunately not. I mean, Ivan Mejia, the journalist you mentioned before, regularly calls him an ex-footballer now, which is, very, very harsh. But the guy needs minutes. he needs it to be at a club where he's playing every single week. He needs to get all the injuries out of his system. It seems that he's still paying the price for trying to rush back for the World Cup. Incredible as it seems a year and a half ago. But until he can start putting some games together, it's foolish to think otherwise. I can't think in the last 2 years of two consecutive games where he's played above, let's say, a 6 out of a 10. I said earlier that it was the 21st last week of January, and that was the 2-year anniversary of that injury that completely wrecked his career. In that time, he's only started 17 games in 2 years, 8 goals he scored in that time. So while in Colombia he's still adored, and there are a lot of people who say he should still be playing for Colombia as the main number 9, and the Tiger will roar again and all this, I just don't see it. Age isn't on his side. If Chelsea pay more than $3 million, they need their heads looking at. But well, he's got an important, powerful man behind him. So in Jorge Mendes, so who knows where his next move is? But for me, he needs to be at a club where he's just playing regular football, even if that means dropping down 1 or even 2 levels.
Yeah, no, I agree. I definitely don't see Chelsea paying $38 million for him, and I can't see Monaco selling him for $3. So I guess they actually is going to be on the move, probably.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's going back to Monaco, or he reaches an agreement with Monaco to end his contract, and he takes a pay cut. I think he's 30 next month in February. So he probably only has one move before he comes back to Colombia and signs for boyhood club Millonarios.
So maybe he'll be the next player rumored to the MLS or China.
Quite possibly, yeah. I like the lead into the next question. I think I know what's coming now.
No, it probably isn't that, because the next question I have for you is going to be, admittedly, a little out of left field. I just finished watching the Narcos series on Netflix, and that is about Escobar. So I guess what I wanted to ask you, I remember reading, it was probably last year, maybe at this time or so, about one of the Colombian teams, Envigado, I think it's pronounced.
That's right.
It's just been put under sanctions by the United States government. And there was a team, perhaps a year before that also, that was Medellin team that was also put on this watch list. Is this still something that's going on in Colombia?
Well, drug is very, very hard to say because these drug cartels, in whatever structure they now exist in, have had 30 years of squirreling away money, of hiding things from the authorities. They've gotten pretty good at it. Colombia still has a lot of drugs flowing through it. The violence might have gone down because that has been transferred away to Mexico, but still drugs plays a big part of society and in the underground. Football is still not immune to that, even though the authorities have done a lot to clean the game up. A lot of the clubs now have to open up their books. But Envigado, they're owned by a guy who was, he's dead now, but he was one of the beneficiaries of when Pablo Escobar's empire came crumbling down. And since then, that has continued, and one of the biggest cartels in the country, the Oficina de Envigado, still, people suspect, have manoeuvres in the club. Now, the club say, no, it's all clean, that's something of the past, we've sorted all that out. They're not allowed to buy players. When they sell a player abroad, they have to. The money has to go to the Football Association. They have to act as the intermediary. I've heard rumours that they're even paying their players in the car park. They're not allowed to sponsor on the shirt, so it's a real mess for them. And thankfully, they've got one of the best youth systems in perhaps South America, so they're surviving quite okay at the moment. But with the drug thing, don't really know exactly what happened in the 90s. We certainly don't know what's happening right now, so it's quite difficult to make conclusions about the role of drugs in football right now. But I would say it would be very, very naive to say that it doesn't exist whatsoever. I think football has cleaned up its game a lot, but it still is there hovering around in the background.
I guess I didn't realize that. So you're telling me Juan Pablo Pueke, I guess his name is he's dead?
No, okay. So that was the guy that came after the breakup of his Peggy, is it? That's the name.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a family member of his. Yeah, Gustavo was the guy who was who died, but I think it's a family member of his now who continues to have some influence in the club.
Oh, okay. I really want to thank you for being on tonight. I really enjoyed our discussion, and I'm going to give you over to my other co-host, Carl. His name's Rob, and he's got a couple of questions for you.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Hey, Carl, it's nice to have you back. It's nice to have you on the show.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. The first question, and you've alluded to this speaking to Mike, is about the transfer regarding Freddie Guarín to China. He stayed in Inter for, I believe, 4 years after going to Porto, and I just want to know, what's your opinion about this move, and do you think that we'll ever see him in the Colombian national team under Peckerman if he does go to China?
It's come out of the blue, yeah. I mean, for the Chinese league, I think it's quite a signing. I think they're talking, what is it, 11, 13 million?
Yeah, something like that.
It's a decent figure. Well, Guarín has been in and out of the team. I don't think Peckerman has ever really fully trusted him on a tactical level, and so at the World Cup he played a couple of games, but I think Peckerman's trusted lieutenants in midfield have always been Aguilar and Carlos Sanchez. But following the World Cup, a lot of those weren't playing, a lot of those were injured, and so Guarín got his chance. And he was named captain in the World Cup qualifiers for the first game against Peru at home, 2-0 win, which Colombia were very, very lucky. Yep. And in the second game against Uruguay, which Colombia lost, and that was a terrible, terrible performance. And after that, Pibe Valderrama, the bushy head icon of Colombian football, launched into Guarín, saying that he never showed any I don't know how a nicer way of translating this. It didn't show any balls, didn't show any fighting spirit, and he alluding to the fact that he didn't deserve to win to wear the captain's armband. Now Guarín hit back, and he went on for quite a long time. But I don't think Guarín is first team material anymore, especially if we consider there are two players, perhaps even three players, who are coming through the ranks in the Colombian league. One of them is Gustavo Cuellar, who's been in the squad. He's just got to move to Flamengo. Yep. Another one is Barrios, is a young kid at Tolima, had a season. Yeah, Wilmer Barrios, and Daniel Torres at Medellin.
Oh wow!
So those three players are now putting a lot of pressure on those midfield places. Aguilar's now back from injury, so yeah, I think his place is severely, even in the squad, is under threat if he goes off to China. I think there's a chapter from history in this. There was Mike Nelly Torres, who during the World Cup qualifiers, he was one of his better players. He was playing for Nacional, and he got an offer to make a lot of money in Saudi Arabia. He went over there, didn't work out for him. He wasn't paid, he wasn't playing. Supposedly Peckerman had said, "Don't worry about it. As long as you're playing, you're going to be in my World Cup squad." He was one of the best players in the World Cup qualifiers. Didn't get in the World Cup team. So Peckerman needs his players playing at the top level, playing regular, and if he goes over to China, is Peckerman going to be watching him over there? I doubt it.
Yeah, of course, with a 12-hour difference from Bogota or wherever he's residing to China, it's going to be really, really hard, that's for sure. And I'm just sticking now, as you previously mentioned, now to the World Cup qualifiers, the first four that they have currently had, and they currently have 4 points. They're in 7th place, right behind Argentina, right behind Chile with 3 points, who have the last Interconfederation playoff spot. They have 2 games in March. They have Bolivia away in La Paz in the altitude, and against Ecuador, who are unbeaten so far in the World Cup qualifiers. Out of those 2 matches, do you think that we will see Colombia get 6 points out of the first 2 games? And if so, if none of them is happening, do you think we see the end of Peckerman as the manager?
Well, the first game in Bolivia, 4 years ago, Colombia kicked off their World Cup qualifying in Bolivia. And the then manager, Leonel Alvarez, controversially dropped Falcao to the bench. This is the Falcao that was scoring 3 goals every week back then. Dropped him to the bench, and he came off the bench to score. It was Colombia's first ever win in La Paz, so that shows how hard a place that is to go. That said, the Bolivian team does seem to be, along with Venezuela, by far and away. I think the competition for the other places is quite tight, but those 2 teams seem a little bit of a way off the others. So possibly 3 points there. At home to Ecuador, the heat is always a big factor. I was actually at the Colombia-Ecuador game 4 years ago at the World Cup qualifier, and Ecuador did, I think they missed a penalty, but they did suffer due to the heat.
Yeah,
I think it's so hard to say because it's the end of March, and if you ask me right now, I would be a little bit worrying saying they're going to go out and get 6 points. I think 3 points would be a good return from those games, given the amount of players. Ospina, he's the main player. He's always he's the first name on the sheet. He doesn't get a game at Arsenal. Nearly all the team, other than Murillo and James is in and out. Murillo and Baca. None of the players from the World Cup or even the Copa America are playing regularly. I think Zuniga has just gone to Bologna. He might get back into the squad, but at the moment it doesn't look good. Could it put any pressure on Peckerman? Well, Peckerman has always adopted a very hermit existence as Colombia coach. We don't see him for 48 weeks a year. When there's no football and nobody knows where he is. He's in Argentina, is he in his summer house in Miami with his wife? Nobody knows. But it's been interesting that since the Copa America, there has been serious pressure put. People and journalists calling for him to go. He's on a lot of money. And a lot of people are saying, well, what are we paying all this money for? Since he signed that contract after the World Cup, a lot of people have accused him of not really putting any effort. He's been very unlucky with injuries and players not doing very well for the club level. But there is pressure. I don't think it's at the level where people are questioning his job, but he has actually responded to that. In the past, you would never see him at local league games. I've seen him twice in the last week. He was at an award ceremony. He was at the Pony Football tournament I told you about. So he is conscious of that. But I think he is part of the problem too, in a certain degree. His big strength has been throughout the whole process. That's the word, the process of Colombia, because between 1998 2014, Colombia went 16 years of just chopping and changing, giving managers 3 games to prove themselves. At the 2010 World Cup, Colombia went through over 90 players. They always went back to Maturana. He was the guy who gave them that place in world football in 1990, 1994. They went back to him twice. They went back to his assistant. There was just no process. Peckerman put in the process. It's been there for 4 years. But since he has started to just bring in wild card players, Daniel Torres, who he refused point blank. He's the midfielder at Medellin who has had long problems with drink. Used to pick him. Whether it's to do with that, we don't know, because every single press conference there was a question about this, and Peckerman would say, "No, I'm watching him, but no, it's my decision. I can't pick everyone." And then suddenly he picks him out of the blue and puts him straight in the first team. maybe that's a response to the fact that he's just not got anyone else of quality. But it does seem to be at odds with his previous strategy of just gently bringing through a squad of players and having a look at a player in one round, and then the next round having a look at another player. The pressure is mounted every week.
Yeah, of course. And you look at different managers in that spell, Maturana, who's easily one of the greatest coaches Colombia has ever produced. And you look at other coaches who have coached the national team, such as Leonard Alvarez, Geran Darío Gómez, Jorge Luis Pinto, Ronaldo Reda. The list goes on and on. That's for sure. Now sticking to the Copa America happening here in the United States in 6 months, do we think we see a strong Colombian team for the Copa America?
I think it all depends how they go on in the World Cup qualifiers from now and June. I think it's June when it kicks off, right?
Yep.
So I think if things continue in the same way, Colombia continue to struggle, then they might. I think the commercial pressures too, because I don't think there's any hiding away from it. This is a tournament that is largely the motivation behind it is cash.
Absolutely.
So I think if there are commercial pressures, the Colombian Federation have long shown that they're not immune to that. They're not they don't want to shy away from that. But yeah, I think if it all depends too on results between now and June. If they pick up form, then maybe they can afford to rest some of these players like James, who hasn't had a break for 3 or 4 years, having played in the Copa America last year, having played in the World Cup the year before. This is a young kid still. If they can rest some players, I think they will do. If the money speaks too highly, then they might have no other options than to bring a strongish squad.
Yeah, of course, and with the roughly 1 million Colombian Americans here in the United States, I think the pressure is definitely on to see their star players. That's for sure. Now sticking now to the local league, and I was referring to the Copa Libertadores. We have 3 Colombian teams in that Copa Libertadores representing Colombia, and it's Atletico Nacional, Deportivo Cali, and Independiente Santa Fe, the champions of the Copa Sudamericana. The question I have now is about Atletico Madrid and their group. I think they're in a group with, if I remember correctly, they're with Sporting Cristal, Peñarol, and the winner of Huracan and Caracas. And a player that I'm really interested in following for this entire tournament is a player called Marlos Moreno. Just given about the living in Colombia, what do you think are the expectations for the side of Atletico Nacional heading into this Libertadores? And do you think we see them become Libertadores champions for the first time since 1989 and the first Colombian champion since Once Caldas in 2004?
They certainly have the best chance. I wouldn't give Cali too many options. They, like you said, they've got Bolivia up in the mountains, Boca Juniors all the way down in Argentina, and Puebla or Racing. That's a lot of travelling, and they've barely signed. They've signed 2 players really, a midfielder and a defensive midfielder and an attacking midfielder, a new left back too. But it's not really a team that's going to win you the Copa Libertadores. I think they're going to really struggle to balance both the league and the Copa Libertadores. The local league and the Copa Libertadores. Santa Fe should be able to see past Oriente Petrolera. They've brought in a lot of players, but a lot of the players that they brought in are up and coming, promising players. There's and they brought in 3 from Corte-Loire. Ibargüen, who's a fantastic prospect, very strong, a decent striker. Medina, a midfielder, and a left-sided midfielder, Christian Borja. But I don't think they have what it takes to go all the way. So that leaves us with Atletico Nacional.
Yeah.
So percent sure with that. They brought in Rueda after a process with Juan Carlos Osorio, the now Mexico manager. They had by far and away the strongest team in the league, the richest team, the biggest strength in depth. Chará was Jimmy Chará, who's now gone back to Mexico, was one of their stars. They had the top goal scorer in Jefferson Duque, but they only had the league to concentrate on. it's going to be really interesting to see how Rueda, the manager, Reinaldo Rueda, the ex-Colombian manager, ex-Ecuador manager, how he balances both of those tournaments, because while Osorio was all big on the squad rotation, you've got to keep players fresh. I'm going to have one team playing in the league. On Wednesday, I've got on Saturday, I'm going to have another team playing in the Copa Libertadores away in Uruguay in midweek. Rueda hasn't really rotated his squad a lot, and it'd be interesting to see how Nacional compare with that. Now, you mentioned Marlos Moreno, and that makes it so impressive that he broke through into a team that really had a lot of attacking presence, because not many people really knew of him 8-9 months ago, and he came out of nowhere, and he was one of the star players last season. He's really one to watch. He plays more, I'd say, more on the left as a left winger, likes to cut inside, pretty strong. He scored the goal in the final. Lovely little turn and finish right in the first minute, first 30 seconds to earn penalties, which Nacional then won. But yeah, Nacional have the best chance of doing something in the Copa Libertadores. But I still think the heavyweights of Brazil and Argentina are stronger.
Yeah, of course. It's really been hard to break that stronghold made by the Brazilians and the Argentines in the Copa Libertadores in the continent. And just my last question. Thank you so much for coming on, Carl. With the season starting in Colombia, and I believe a few weeks, if I'm not mistaken.
No, it starts this Friday.
It starts this Friday. What's there to expect for someone? Because I live here in the United States, and I have access to RCN and Caracol on my television. So I was just wondering, for someone who's a neutral or a newcomer to the Colombian League, in just a few seconds, what's there to expect, and why do you think this league should be watched by more Americans?
Just the amount of young kids that come out of the system. I think Colombian clubs have some pretty good youth setups. Envigado and Cali, Deportivo Cali, probably have two of the best youth setups in the entire continent. Cali, pretty much their entire team is all youth kids. So just seeing those kids come through, and suddenly like Rafael Santos Borré, who joined Atletico Madrid for €5.5 million a few months ago. Harold Preciado, who's another striker at Cali, who's surely going to be the next one to leave for Europe. I think that's my interest in it. But also, I think after in the mid-2000s, after years of financial mismanagement, the big clubs were struggling badly, and you saw tiny teams of 1,000 fans, 2,000 fans like Chico, Pasto, Cucuta being able to win the league. And yeah, I think it turned a lot of local fans off, that the league became so poor that such small teams could win it. Now I think that is almost a thing of the past. I think you get the odd small team that will come up and challenge occasionally, but it generally is the big teams, and there are maybe 5 or 6 big teams in Colombia. Nacional and Millonarios are the biggest two, but Santa Fe, Junior, Cali, Medellin are the ones to watch this year. They're the ones that also can challenge for the title. I find it kind of refreshing watching a league, and anybody can beat anyone. And yeah, you get to see 17-year-old kids making their debuts and being far better than any other player on the pitch.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll definitely be paying attention to the Colombian League once it starts, and of course the teams in the Libertadores. Carl, I really want to thank you for coming on. It's been a real pleasure, and I'm going to pass it over to Joe.
Thanks, Rob. Carl, again, thank you again for joining us tonight. We had a fantastic discussion on all things Colombian football, and we really enjoyed it, and we'd love to have you back again, especially when we get a little closer to those tougher games that Colombia is going to be facing qualifying for the World Cup.
Yeah, anytime. Thank you very much for having me.
All right, have a good night. And that was Carl Worswick from ESPN FC. And the other one that I forgot to mention is that he's from World Soccer Magazine as well. So, again, a fantastic guest. We had a great time. any thoughts on what he had to say tonight?
No, I thought it was great. Especially, we always like those guests that specialize in a certain country or or a team that actually reside in that country. So you really got to give him props for that.
Yeah, and it allows especially when he specializes in a team like, or in a country, especially a country like Colombia that has so many talented players playing all over the world. You get to bounce from league to league to league and talk about different players. I think it adds to the conversation as well. Mike, what did you think of Carl's appearance? I think Mike left. Yeah, I don't know where he is.
No, he's still here. He's probably on mute.
No, he's on mute, I'm sure. So that's all right. We'll have to have him come off mute here in a minute. Rob, since we're...
Can you guys hear me?
There he is.
There we go.
See, always...
Oh, I guess my cord got unplugged somehow. I wasn't on mute. I thought he was really good, but I was really impressed that Rob was able to guess his accent.
Yeah, that's amazing. That is amazing. I know he's English. That's about it. But Manchester, wow, that was pretty good. Rob. So, all right. So, gentlemen, since we're running a little short on time tonight, let's do the speed round of the league coverage that we normally do, which will give the match of the week and the week ahead all together in one snap, as well as if you want to do some tables and goal scorers in your 30 seconds of fame. So, Rob, you want to take us over to Spain and kick it off?
Let's go to La Liga. And last week's featured match was Atletico Madrid, Sevilla. We predicted a 3-1 victory for the Colchoneros. It was 0-0 between both teams. And as it stands in the table, our match of the week will be Barcelona against Atletico Madrid, Saturday at 10 a.m. A big match. You got 1 against 2. Barcelona are ahead with a game in hand. Both teams are equal at points with 48. So advantage really is going to go to Barcelona for the remainder of the league if they can get a key victory here at home against Atletico Madrid.
Want to put a stamp on it?
1-0 Barcelona.
1-0 Barca. Wow, a barn burner, huh?
Go Atletico.
So,
Joe, what do you think?
This game's at the Nou Camp. I've got to say, I think Barca's going to win this as well. I would just.
But who do you want to win?
I kind of want Barca to win. I do like Diego Simeone. I think he's the kind of coach every single team and every single fan would want for their team. But for me, I like Messi. What are you going to do?
Barcelona's like voting for the New York Yankees. I'm
a Yankees fan. So what are you going to do?
I forgot you vote for all the teams that suck.
Yeah. Well, I am supporting City lately, so.
No. Your one saving grace.
Yeah, right. So
there's always an exception to the rule, Joe.
I think Barca's going to win. Time and time again, they've proven to come up big in these big matches, and this is as big as any. This, and Rob, like you said, if Barca does pull out a victory here, they really put a stranglehold on the league. This game is, I'd say, equally as big as El Clasico, don't you think? In terms of its importance in the standings.
Absolutely.
So I think Barca shows up to play, and I think when Barca shows up to play, every other team in the world better watch out. They're that good. So
like Arsenal.
Yeah. So I think a 2-0 victory here is not out of the question. So right. I think you're actually selling Barca a little short, Rob. That's what I think. But yeah, so anything else you want to tell us about La Liga before we move on?
No, I do want to mention Paraguayan. He scored a hat trick for Sporting Gijón. Antonio Sanabria against Real Sociedad. Currently has 9 goals. How
can you not mention Cristiano Ronaldo kicking a guy for the second week in a row and getting nothing?
I didn't see the game, so.
Oh my God, he kicked him blatantly. It was obvious.
Yeah.
He stood up and kicked the guy right in the back of the leg.
Looks
for
like
the second week in a row.
Mike, looks like MLS is calling his name. That's a sign.
I don't know. Yeah. He sure hasn't looked good the last couple of weeks, anyway.
Definitely.
All right, so that'll do it for Spain. Let's head over to France, and our match of the week was the Lyon-Marseille match that was played this weekend. On this one, I had predicted a 2-1 victory for Lyon. We ended up with a 1-1 draw. Goals in this one by Cabella in the 64th minute and Tolisso in the 78th to tie it up for Lyon. Statistical information in this one: possession was dominated by Lyon, 61-39. Shots were 10-6. Shots on target, though, were 4-2 in favor of Marseille in a 1-1 draw. So looking at the standings real quick, PSG, champions of this league, not mathematically yet, but might as well be. 60 points. They are currently, just doing the math, 21 points ahead of Monaco in second place at 39 points. Nice on 36, Rennes and Angers on 34. Rennes currently holding the final European position in France. Relegation teams right now looking like Troyes, Toulouse, and Montpellier, with Reims just outside at 23 points. Our match of the week coming up for this week, gentlemen, is Angers Monaco. So again, we just mentioned Angers. We talked about Angers and Caen earlier in the season as possible European spot holders, because they were actually running second and third for a good length of the season. They've kind of fallen off the pace here a little bit. But Angers has lost 3 of their last 4 matches, and facing a Monaco side that has won 3 of their last 5. Clearly, no one's going to catch PSG, but this is a match that could determine European positions out of France, and I think Monaco will take this, looking at the recent run of form that Angers is currently on. I'm going to take Monaco in this one with a 2-1 victory on the road, and I was still rooting for the little guy, but I'm hoping he will. I don't have much hope for them. Top scorers in this league right now: Zlatan Ibrahimovic on 17 goals, Batshuayi on 12, Mukanjo on 11, and then Ben Arfa and Cavani on 10 goals each. Angel Di Maria on 8 goals, rounding out the top 5. And that'll do it. And by the way, the match this week on Monaco is Sunday at 11 a.m. So, Mike, I'm going to send it over to you for the Premier League.
They should all be relegated from that league except for PSG.
or they should just send PSG to a different league.
What a terrible league. Okay, English Premier League, Joe. Somewhere in England this weekend, Jose Mourinho was both smiling and snarling. I'm sure he was smiling because Chelsea was able to continue their dominance over Wenger and the Gunners, and snarling because 2 of his Spanish Benedict Arnolds, Diego Costa and Cesc Fabregas, were both vital in the Blues' 1-0 victory over Arsenal at the Emirates. Yep. Quick look at the stats from this game saw Arsenal with 9 shots and only 1 on net. Chelsea with 12, 6 on target. Possession 53-47 in favor of Chelsea. Notable in this game was the return for Arsenal of Alexis Sanchez from a long injury. So Arsenal starting to get some of their guns back, but still weren't able to pull this one out after losing Mertesacker in the 18th minute with a red card. I know Wenger complained about it, but it definitely was a red card for me. So I think the most telling thing about this game was how bad Chelsea were, even though they were a man up. They won the game, but they still don't look that great to me. A quick look at the table sees Leicester moving back to the top of the table in the Premier League with 47 points, followed by Manchester City and Arsenal, both on 44. Tottenham is in 4th on 42, and rounding out the top 5, Manchester United on 37 points. Propping up the bottom of the table in 20th is Aston Villa with 13. Sunderland on 19 points, also in 19th position. And the final relegation spot at this point goes to Newcastle United on 21 points. James Vardy, with his goal at the weekend, was able to regain the goal lead. He's now on 16. We got Lukaku closely behind on 15 and Agallo on 14. Joe, I have to just mention quickly that Sergio Aguero was able to score his 89th and 90th goals on the weekend for Manchester City. He has the best minutes per goal ratio in Premier League history at 108 minutes to every goal. He scores a goal every 0.66 games, and his 90 goals, he was the second quickest to 90 goals in Premier League history, 136 games to score 90 goals. Only Alan Shearer did it quicker. He did it in 113 games. And Aguero also, he didn't do it at the weekend, but he also continued his lead as Manchester City's all-time scorer with obviously his 90th goal, followed now by Tevez with 48. And he also became the all-time leading top South American scorer in Premier League history.
Wow.
Impressive.
Yeah, I was going to say pretty impressive. But is he better than Paulo Dybala?
He is the best Argentinian on the planet, so I think that answers your question.
I think that some guy in Barcelona would like to have a word.
Yeah, he wouldn't be right, though.
Well, it's kind of tough to see Aguero to speak to him over his 5 Ballon d'Ors that he has to stare through.
Whatever.
I think it's almost,
that's a popularity contest.
Listen,
we don't go for that. We go for...
It's impressive. What Aguero has done there is absolutely impressive. So,
and I think he surpassed Tevez' record.
I don't know.
I think that has for most goals scored by a South American in the Premier League.
Yeah, I mentioned
I said
that.
that.
Okay.
Yeah. So, it's still impressive. Unbelievable. So, all right, Rob, to the Bundesliga.
Yes, in the Bundesliga, our match of the weekend, a really good matchup if anyone was watching it. Borussia Mönchengladbach against Dortmund. We predicted the 2-0 victory for Borussia Dortmund. Score ended 3-1 for Borussia Dortmund. Goals from Marco Reus in the 41st minute. Henrik Mkhitaryan in the 50th. Rafael made it 1-2 inside 58 minutes, but Gundogan scored the winner in the 75th minute to give all 3 points to Thomas Tuchel's side. As the table stands, Bayern Munich are still first with 49, Dortmund with 41 points in second, or Berlin in third with 33, Mönchengladbach 29 in fourth, Bayer Leverkusen 28 points in fifth, and in sixth place, Schalke with 27 points. The top goal scorers is still someone who didn't really have a good game, Joe, if you were watching, is Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang.
Yeah, he missed a couple of sitters, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
He should have had at least 1 or 2 goals in that match. I was kind of surprised that he was kept off the score sheet, but in the end, Dortmund didn't need it the way Gundogan, Reus, and Mkhitaryan played.
Absolutely,
fantastic out of them.
And our match of the week in Germany is Wolfsburg against Cologne. It's Cologne. It's 7th against 9th. 7th against 9th with 2 points separating them. I think this Wolfsburg side have enough to beat them. 2-1.
2-1 for Wolfsburg. Yeah, and I'm kind of surprised when I went through and looked at the standings here. Wolfsburg being in 7th, but they've really had an awful run of form. They've lost 3 of their last 4 matches, most recently over the weekend, losing to Eintracht Frankfurt 3-2, in a match that I didn't get to see the match, but by all accounts, Marco Fabian, with his debut at Eintracht, was absolutely stellar. Came on in the 46th minute and really changed the match for them. So, maybe that Eintracht team is going to start marching their way up the table. Currently sitting 20th. We'll have to see, but you got to think Wolfsburg should have enough to beat Cologne, especially I believe at home too. Yeah, at home. So I think there'll definitely be enough there for that. So
yeah, of course.
Yeah. So all right, on to the
Joe, I forgot to mention there are no Premier League games this weekend. That's why we don't have a match of the week. It's Carling Cup and FA Cup week.
That's right. Mike, I want to ask you real quick. This kind of got to some of the things that I talk about on this show. I mean, in the middle of the season, they're 24 matches into the season. I think there are just too many competitions. I mean,
Yes.
Me and Rob have both said Carling Cup's dumb, but
we get rid of it.
The FA Cup's the greatest trophy there is.
Mm-hmm.
Besides the Stanley Cup or the World Cup.
Well, I mean, I'm talking about
England.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, football,
but yeah, it's
yeah, I could do without the Carling Cup.
Because
sure.
they're in the semis there for the Carling Cup, right? Or the Capital One Cup now.
Yeah, Capital One Cup.
Whatever. Yeah. Insert sponsor here.
Yeah, they should have. It's just more money and I guess more silverware, but it's a useless piece of silverware, and I'd rather have those games off.
Yeah,
those days off.
I'm with you. The players need the rest. So let's get back over to the Serie A, and the match of the week was yesterday. It was a great one. Juventus 1-0 victory over Roma at the Juventus Stadium. I predicted a 2-0 victory, so right result, wrong score. We had a Paulo Dybala goal in the 77th minute in this one, which sealed it for them with an assist from Paul Pogba. Statistical information in this one. Juve dominated the possession 55-45. Shots were 15-6 in favor of Juve, and this is the key one here, guys. Shots on goal 7-1 in favor of Juventus.
Wow.
We talked about this a million times. You're not getting your shots on goal. I mean, it sounds like an old John Madden thing. If the team scores more touchdowns, they're going to win. If you're not getting your shots on goal, you're not going to score goals, and you're going to lose time and time again. And I know everyone's waiting for the second coming of Spalletti here, thinking that this Roma side is going to start dominating. And to an extent, I actually believe that, and I agree. He just hasn't had a chance to really put his stamp on this team, and maybe with a couple of moves here in this transfer window, he starts to shape this team to where they get back into these European positions and start battling. But Juve was definitely the better side yesterday. The 55-45 possession for me was a little misleading. I thought it was easily 60-40, 65-35. To me, it didn't seem like Roma had much of the ball at all, but I guess the mathematicians, the bean counters say differently. But a Juventus victory in this one sees them join Napoli. As really we're starting to see some separation at the top of the table here, gentlemen. We previously talked about 5 or 6 teams that were racing for this Serie A title. Now we've really narrowed it down to 2. We've got Napoli on top after 21 weeks on 47 points. Juventus just behind them with 2 points on 45 points. Then we see 4 points back to Fiorentina and Inter at 41. And another 6 points back to Roma on 35 points in 5th place. Just outside the European positions are AC Milan at 33. And really within striking distance of Roma if they don't get this turned around. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens to those two teams moving forward. We're even seeing Sassuolo and Empoli just behind them at 32 points. The bottom of the table looks like this. Verona, Frosinone, and Carpi are all inside the relegation zone. Sampdoria right now is 5 points outside of that relegation zone, but they've lost their last 3. They've had a little bit of a struggle here. It's going to be interesting to see if they can possibly get this turned around to make themselves safe at the bottom of the table. Match of the week coming up this week, gentlemen, is the Derby della Madonnina, which is the Milan Derby. AC Milan, Inter Milan, Sunday at 2:45 p.m. We're talking about a matchup of teams number 4 and number 6 in the division. Currently looking at AC Milan's run of form, they are 2 wins and 2 draws in their last 5. Inter not quite as good, a win and 2 draws in their last 5. Inter coming off a 1-1 draw to Carpi, and AC Milan coming off a 2-2 draw to Empoli, a much improved Empoli side, by the way, I should say. I've got to think, and we also saw the return of Mario Balotelli this week. I've got to think Inter's going to win this game. There's something about it that says to me, I mean, AC Milan's listed as a home team, but I got to think Inter's going to win this match. I'm going to reluctantly take a 2-1 victory for Inter Milan in this one. I think there's probably a little bit more of a likelihood of a draw, but I feel like Ray Hudson. I don't want to pick a draw. So
a 2-2 draw.
You think a 2-2 draw in this one?
2-2 draw.
Yeah, Mike, you got 2 cents you want to put in on this
Nah.
this big derby?
No, I don't. I'll watch the game, but I don't know enough to. I don't.
So we'll have to see. I mean,
Mancini, right?
Yeah,
I'll go for any time. He's great.
Yeah,
I go for him.
All right, well then Mike's on my side because I've got Mancini winning this one myself. So again, we'll have to see what happens. Let's look at the top goal scorers.
Love me some Roberto Mancini.
You'd love to have him back right now, wouldn't you?
Oh well, no, Pellegrini's up there right now, but just he brought it. He's the one that got us.
Yeah,
our first trophies.
Yeah, right. After 44 years.
So, gentlemen, top of the scoring charts here in Italy see 2 Argentinians. Gonzalo Higuain, who is leading all scorers in I believe, all over the world. 21 goals so far on this season. He is having an unbelievable season under Maurizio Sarri right now, and it doesn't look like it's going to stop anytime soon. Second on the list, Paulo Dybala at Juventus on 12 goals, and Eder on Sampdoria also on 12 goals. And then we go back to 4th place for Carlos Bacca, Ilic, and Kalincic, both at Fiorentina, with Pavoletti at Genoa at 10 goals apiece. So really, things are starting to heat up in Italy. Hopefully, I know we're seeing this separation at the top of the table at the moment, but I'm really kind of hoping that maybe a couple of these teams come back into the draw and really make this race to the finish line something more exciting. But right now, Napoli and Juventus really look strong. Juventus winning their 11th straight match. Nico De Benedetto on Beyond the Pitch today said that if you were Bayern Munich, you should probably start being afraid because these guys are starting to look like they're flowing, and there's no stopping them. They just seem to be dominating.
He's way behind. I bet on them 4 weeks ago, as you
know. Not to mention that Jerome Boateng is now injured.
And Jerome Boateng is injured now, and he's out for 3 or 4 months.
3 months.
Yeah, so that's
a big one.
That's a huge. They were talking about him as Defensive Player of the Year in the Bundesliga.
6.5 to 1.
6.5 to 1 for Juventus.
Yeah, no, that's what I got them at. If you remember, I told you. Remember, it was 13 to 2.
And he did say that.
Aren't they now like 4 to 1?
There's no way that they only win once out of 6.5 times that game.
That's right. I remember you actually saying that on the show.
It's close. It's very close. That's for sure.
It's
3 to 3.5 is what I would say.
It's
almost even money this game, but go Juventus in that one.
Yeah, definitely.
For more
First time you'll ever
one.
hear that. Oh, maybe the last.
Maybe the last.
Unless they draw each other in the quarterfinals.
Joe, I should just quickly mention that the MLS 6 weeks away from yesterday was the start date.
Okay.
And big news today, it looks like Didier Drogba back to the Montreal Impact for one more season.
I saw that he was going to be training with them coming up in their camp.
He's actually off to Abu Dhabi now. That's where they're training.
And, I think that, as good as that is for the Montreal Impact, I think it's better for MLS.
Oh, yeah, it would have been. It would have been better if he never came to him leaving like this.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, big for MLS that he's at least going to see out his contract.
Yep. Last thing that I probably want to mention in the transfer window portion of the program, we've put it in the plan for 3 weeks. We've barely mentioned it. Christian Atsu went from Chelsea to Malaga today on loan. That's probably the only one that I really care to mention. We also mentioned Gervinho going over to China. That is a done deal. So
Mauro Zarate to Fiorentina.
Zarate to Fiorentina as well. So we've had we have a little bit of movement, but nothing blockbuster like we were hoping for in this transfer window. So we'll tune in next week because the transfer window will be closed, and
it'll actually close on Monday night while we're just before we get on the air, or right when we get on the air.
That's right.
Right.
We'll actually, I think we should focus on talking about transfers next week. We'll see what moves have been made, if anything worthwhile has been made, and then probably, discuss that. Either that or our other opening thoughts topic we had talked about. At least one of those we'll probably do. So, gentlemen, without much more on the table, Mike, would you like to repeat the trivia question?
All right. I have been a teammate of Matthew Flamini, Wesley Schneider, Arjan Robin, Joe Cole, Nigel Rio-Coker, and Yaya Toure. Who am I?
I wrote down one name. I know it's wrong because I can't place him in his career with Yaya Toure or Matthew Flamini, but I think he has played with Joe Cole, Nigel Rio-Coker, and definitely Arjen Robben and Wesley Sneijder. So, Rob, I'm going to let you go first.
No, how about you go first, Joe?
No. This time you're going to go first, damn it.
Really? I'm going for a shot in the dark because just say the names just one more time, Mike.
One more time?
Just one more time, just so I can listen correctly and see if I can get everything.
All right. Now I got to find it again. Sorry. Matthew Flamini, Wesley Schneider, Arjan Robben, Joe Cole, Nigel Rio-Coker, and Yaya Toure.
Didier Drogba?
I was just going to say that.
Wow, that's right.
Wow, I don't know. You know what was
you should have went first, Joe.
Yeah, you know what? I didn't think of Didier Drogba until you just said it for the fourth time. Nigel Rio-Coker, and we just.
Who did you have written then?
Robin van Persie.
Oh, okay.
And that's where.
So if he wouldn't have, you would have switched your answer.
I would have changed my answer from van Persie to Drogba because of you said Nigel Rio-Coker, and we just got done talking about Montreal Impact.
You should have went first.
I should have went first. Well, I let Rob get it right this time. So that's all right. Anyway. All right, gentlemen. Without any further ado, we'll hit the closing music.
Sounds good.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Coming right up. So, for episode 106 of Low Limit Football, thanks again to Carl Worswick for joining us. Coming up next week, we are just waiting on confirmation, but it looks like we're going to have Curtis Larson from Toronto, the Toronto Sun-Times, right, Mike?
Just the Toronto Sun, Joe, yeah.
The Toronto Sun, okay. So he'll be joining us. We'll talk a lot about MLS. We'll talk about the transfer window closing. Keep an ear out for our This Week in Football podcast. It's going to be up on Vavle sometime this week. And we'll talk about a few other things. So for episode 106 of Low Limit Football, I'm Joe Usello.
I'm Roberto Rojas.
And I'm Mike Orr.
Thanks for listening, everyone, and good night.
Thanks for listening.